Welcome to the Whole Story podcast. This podcast series is focused on inspiring sustainability in agriculture, using the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the SDGs. Each week, our guests are invited to share their story, highlight a particular one of the 17 goals, and leave us with some practical tips for sustainability on farms. I'm Becks Smith, founder of The Whole Story, a B Corp certified social enterprise inspiring, facilitating, and articulating holistic sustainability in agriculture. And this podcast has been brought to life in partnership with the incredible team at FMG, who are passionate about partnering with organisations like The Whole Story, so together we can support rural New Zealand. So whatever you're doing while listening to this episode, thanks for choosing us. The best way you can support our mahi is to follow and share the show on whatever app you're listening on, and I hope this episode leaves you inspired and excited about the bigger picture of sustainability in agriculture. Today we are lucky enough to have Annabelle Subtil joining us from Omarama Station. Annabelle is not only busy farming with her husband Richard, running a farm stay business on the property, but she is also a director on the board of Growing Future Farmers, an initiative that aligns perfectly with her values. She describes herself as a supporter, not often in the limelight, but a jack of all trades, and she certainly is that, with an unwavering support of our agricultural sector and a passion for the growth of enthusiastic young people into that space. This episode is based around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4, Quality Education. So sit back, relax, and have a listen to the pathway that Growing Future Farmers is providing for people with the right mindset to enter into the agricultural sector, and not only providing them with the knowledge, but the right balance of practical skills and life experience to hit the ground running on farms. Right, so welcome everyone. Today on our episode we are talking to Annabelle Subtil. Now she is a farmer at Omarama Station, but also is on the board of Growing Future Farmers. And what we want to talk to Annabelle today about is the importance of access to quality education in agriculture. So welcome, Annabelle.
Thanks, Becks. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, really happy to have you here. And I guess let's dive straight into it. And can you tell us a bit of the story of Annabelle Subtil?
I guess my story is one that's gone a full circle. I was fortunate enough to grow up here on Omarama Station, where we run merino sheep and beef cattle. I'm third generation on the property, which was brought by my grandfather in 1920. Having grown up here and after school and uni, I worked in hospitality before heading overseas on my OE, which was what a lot of us did back in the day, and I think a lot of Kiwis are going to start doing again. While I was in England, I met Richard. Then after getting married, we continued working overseas in Dubai and Malaysia. But when the opportunity came up to come back to New Zealand to go farming, it was obviously an easy decision for me because it was home, but one Richard was prepared to take on and has fully embraced. I guess it was all about the timing and the amazing opportunity. I was pregnant with our daughter Emma, who was born in Malaysia, and she was 3 months old when we moved back home. And in my opinion, there's nowhere better to bring up children than in New Zealand and on a farm. So we now have 2 children, Emma and Henry, who are both very passionate about and are involved in agriculture.
How exciting, and what a wonderful story there, especially about your OE. My husband and I also did our OE over in the UK and had an absolute blast, and I look forward to New Zealanders having that opportunity again to travel and see the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I definitely concur with you around there is no better place to bring up children in New Zealand and on the farm, because certainly having a family of my own, it's something that I'm really passionate about, bringing up our kids on our farm. A topic that's dear to my heart, and we've spoken about this before, but I'd love to dive into it a bit deeper today, is sustainability. And it's a really big word, and it comes very weighted, and it's so the different definitions for different people. And so I'd love to hear personally, what does sustainability mean to you, Annabelle?
Sustainability is a big word. It's a word that gets used a lot, and it has lots of different meanings, as you said. But to me, I guess it is acknowledging that I've been given a fantastic opportunity to farm here at Omarama Station by my parents, who was very invested in the property. And I want to make sure that I can hand it on to the next generation as a viable business that's in the sense of environmental, economic, and social responsibilities. So it's all about recognising the previous generations and what they've done, and then paying it forward for the future generations.
Yeah, I really think that's a beautiful way of summing it up. You've just made me really reflect on, I think, that power that agriculture and farming has in the sustainability conversation about, there's so much pride and legacy, and there's so much recognition of those who have gone before us and what they've done, and that responsibility we have to be able to continue that on.
Absolutely. I think Richard and I both feel that responsibility of what our forebears have done, and responsibility of having 2 children that are passionate about agriculture as well. One of our main goals is to leave the property as a viable business going forward.
Yeah, and what an exciting opportunity for them to think about that in that same space that you saw it as an amazing opportunity to come home to see that passion in your children as well.
Yep, absolutely. They have been told they're not allowed actually to come home for 10 years after leaving high school, because at that age and stage, Omarama Station and farming was the only thing that they kind of knew. But we want them to go away and try different things, explore different avenues, and then at the end of 10 years, if they still want to come home, then it's the right decision for the right reason.
Yeah, and what an amazing skill set they will bring home if and when they do from that world experience gained.
Yep, absolutely. That's what we're hoping for.
No, that's wonderful. I think you've really gone into depth there around your background in agriculture and on the farm. So the next question's almost redundant for you around your first link to agriculture, because it's always been there. I guess we'll go off tact a little bit and ask you on the spot. Is there an interesting or diverse link to agriculture you have in there that's not Omarama Station, but actually something outside of that?
One of our diverse links, but it is still kind of linked to Omarama Station, is that we do farm stays here, and we do it because we enjoy it. And it's really interesting to see people experiencing the farm through a different set of eyes and a different mindset. And they always ask you questions which make you stop and think, actually, why am I doing that? And it also makes you really appreciate what you've got and not just take this amazing environment for granted.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Was that something that you started up, Annabelle? Was that driven by you or someone else in the family?
Oh, I guess Mum and Dad started it when we all left home, and then it's something that we've continued with because, as I say, we enjoy meeting the huge variety of people that we get that come and stay. And it's really special to share Omarama Station with other people.
Yeah, that is really lovely, and I'm sure people really enjoy it and enjoy your hospitality. I'd like to put you in the hot seat a little bit, Annabelle. Can you please tell me your funniest story related to farming or agriculture?
Oh, it's a tricky one. Over the years and through the generations, there's been lots and lots of great stories, but I can't think of any of them off the top of my head. So I guess one that's happened more recently that comes to mind, Richard and Elise, who's our GFF student, and I were mustering the bulls out of a scrubby block on the horses. I've got a very patient and trusting horse, Kevy, who pretty much goes where I ask him. So we were following the bulls down the gully, and the bulls had made tunnels through the scrub, and Kevy and I were happily following them until suddenly Kevy ducked his head under a branch, and I was wiped off my saddle, down his back, landing on my feet with my feet still in the stirrups, but just no horse underneath me.
Oh dear.
Yes, he did leave me behind, but he very patiently waited for me on the other side of the bush, and I just suggested to Elise that maybe she needed to find an alternative route.
Thankfully, you landed on your feet. Do you really enjoy doing the horse work on the farm?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to get around the countryside. It means that you can actually spend more time looking at the stock instead of watching where you're driving, that sort of thing. I leave all that detail up to Kevy. And I always remember when I was young going out with one of the guys that used to work here, and he said, it's not a bad picture out of the office window this morning as we were riding across the flats on our horses. And he's right.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique way to do work, isn't it?
And I think the stock respond a lot better when you're on horses than you do in vehicles. So it's a really good way to do things when you can.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're quite small and flatland where we are, and we don't do stock work on horse, but I'm certainly very envious of people who do and the large ranging countries that you can cover. And it's such a generally a peaceful form of transport. As you say, the stock do connect really well when you're working them on horses. So, no, I'm very, very jealous. So, you touched briefly there on your GFF student. Tell us a little bit more about Growing Future Farmers, your involvement, and your journey to be a director on the board of GFF.
Growing Future Farmers was started about 3 years ago, and it was an initiative started by farmers for farmers to encourage young people into agriculture as a career. So, starting at the beginning and developing both practical and academic qualifications. So, the students don't have to come from a farming background, they just have to come with the right attitude for learning. It's a 2-year program with zero fees where the students live on farm. They work 4 days a week on farm, getting the practical workplace training and development. And then each Friday they get together either via Zoom or face-to-face for classroom learning or dog training or lots of other activities. So the idea is to try and set up hubs in areas and have groups of 8 to 10 students on farms so that they have a nice network to relate to, as do the farmer trainers who take on the students. So both the students and the farmer trainers are also supported by regional liaison managers, and they help with the pastoral care of the students as well as their training. So the pastoral care is a huge part of the program because it's often the first time these kids have left home. So then at the end of the 2 years, the students come away with the NZQA Primary Industries Level 2 and 3, Pre-Employment Skills Level 3, and a Certificate in Agricultural Food and Fibre Level 3, along with the essential farm skills which they get whilst living on farm, such as vehicle training, fencing, shearing, chainsaw courses, and lots more. And then they also train a couple of working dogs themselves within that 2-year period. So Richard and I had often talked about how there was a real need for this sort of thing in the South Island for young people to get into agriculture. There were several places in the North Island that already exist, and they've always been oversubscribed and quite hard to get into. So when I was approached by GFF to join the board, it was a pretty easy decision, as it was something that I had been talking about for quite a few years beforehand.
How amazing. What an incredible initiative and just an experience for those who are willing and excited about getting into agriculture to be able to jump on board and gain those necessary skills, life experiences, and to do it under the watchful eye of a farmer trainer.
That's what it's all about. It's getting the practical skills that are aligned with their classroom learning and lots of training courses up front. So when they've finished, they hit the ground running for their first job into the agriculture, sheep and beef industry.
Yeah, and how many students have you had go through the program so far?
So we've got about 87, I think, at the moment. Next year we're hoping to get sort of 125 plus. So it's sort of growing year in year.
Incredible. And that'll make such a difference because I know there's certainly a shortage of people out there in the workforce in agriculture. So the work that GFF is doing is going to make a real difference to provide the agricultural sector with these talented young people.
Yeah, I believe so. And if we don't lead the training, no one's done it for us. So I think it's really important that we become engaged in this space.
100%. And speaking of engagement, how easy is it to get farmers involved with being farmer trainers?
Yeah, it is probably our limiting factor is getting the farmer trainers on board. It doesn't come without its challenges, but it also comes with huge rewards when you see these young students learning and mastering these skills that they're being taught.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's so aligned with, I guess, the work that I want to share with the world, which is around the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the reason we're actually talking today is focused on goal number 4, which is around quality education and what I personally see as so important to the agricultural sector. And you obviously have a values alignment there too. Yeah, specifically within that goal, there's some targets that I think, this fits under, which is more specifically 4.3 and 4.4, where we're looking at just equal access for women and men to quality technical education, and also increasing the number of youth and adults who actually have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. I wonder if we could just dive into that, or at least your thoughts on that goal, those targets, and the work you're doing with GFF.
Yeah, so just as a bit of background, so there's fewer than 3% of school leavers actually go on to study agriculture, and then only a proportion of those go into the sheep and beef and deer sector. So we desperately need to attract more capable young people into our sector and train them. We've also learned over the years that farming can't be taught in a classroom. So GFF, as I said before, is an employer-led, grassroots-up alternative.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for just building those skills. As you say, farming can't be taught in the classroom. You can gain knowledge, but it's the application of that knowledge in a practical setting that we need to see on the ground to get people who can hit the ground running and make our industry thrive.
Yeah, we really need to be targeting young people that don't necessarily have a farming background, but who come out of our towns, because we're becoming more and more urbanised. So we're looking for young students that just have the right attitude to learning and the enthusiasm to give it a go, and then we can help them with the rest. There was a time when it was just okay to tell people to do things, but increasingly we find it's important to explain the why, and the more people understand the why, the more engaged they become in what they're doing. And for whatever reason, there seems to be such a shortage of people in every industry. So if we're not making agriculture attractive with a career pathway, we're going to miss out.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. What you're providing is a pathway, because I think if you don't come from an agricultural background, where would you start? And that is exactly what you're doing, is you're providing a safe space to start your journey into agriculture that's supported and that's really, really based on strong foundations to get you ready for the game. And I think, yeah, I mean, the traditional pathway for someone from an agricultural background would be to go away to the likes of Lincoln and then come back to a farm or find another job through connections. But it's that, how do we attract people from outside the agricultural background into farming? Because it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be working, and we need to make it exciting and possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the gateway into agriculture industry. So, when they do leave this 2-year program, they are really work ready for an entry-level shepherding job. So it's pretty exciting.
It's very exciting. So looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, I guess it'd be really interesting to hear from you, Annabelle, which one specifically you align with the most and why.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some great goals there, and obviously land, water, those ones are right up there for anybody in the farming game. But I think, quality education is also such an important thing. And for all those reasons that we've just talked about, we need to be getting young people into the industry, getting them engaged and showing them that there is a career pathway there for them.
Yeah, I was listening to another podcast recently talking about how we attract people into agriculture, and it was speaking to people around, what do you like to do? You like maths? Great, there's a job in agriculture. You like animals? Great, there's a job in agriculture. You can be a vet. Or, you like engineering? Great, there's a job in agriculture. So I think agriculture is such a broad industry that no matter what your interests and passions are starting with or coming out of school, there is a space for you in our sector.
Absolutely. And I mean, I said it was entry level into shepherding, but, not all of our students will end up going shepherding. Some of them will go fencing, contracting, working for contractors, working for vets. You're right. There are so many different types of jobs within the agricultural industry.
Oh, yeah. And I think definitely the Growing Future Farmers program gives people a chance at least to explore that and then find within that where they might be passionate. So, as you say, they may not end up all being shepherds, but they may find something like fencing that they absolutely love and want to build their own career out of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so touching on our agricultural sector as a nation, what do you see as the biggest challenge to our sector regarding sustainability? And how would you flip the script on that and turn it into an opportunity?
Yeah, I think New Zealand agriculture has been focusing for too long on volume and not on value, and we really need to change that, despite what we think we don't feed and clothe the world. Particularly now, with the cost of production going up drastically, it's even more important that we focus on the ethical production of high quality and therefore more valuable outputs. So we want to go for quality over quantity.
I love that. And I think it is such an opportunity for our nation to carve out our niche in that value space. I did hear someone else reflect earlier in that nothing should leave New Zealand as a commodity anymore. It should all be with value add.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess we're lucky here. We've always done quite a lot of value add through direct supply contracts. It's really rewarding actually seeing where your product ends up rather than just seeing it leaving the farm gate and having no idea where it ends up.
Yeah, and do you think it builds that connection for you with the end consumer? And do you feel greater connected to the end product?
Yep, absolutely. It's a two-way thing. They understand our business more and we understand their business more. And, we all go through our ups and downs. And if we can help each other through those ups and downs, then we're likely to survive longer and build better relationships.
I think that's wonderful. I like to hear stories from the likes of yourself where you are more connected with your consumer and that whole supply chain. And I think that, it's definitely something that there's a lot of farming businesses within New Zealand can learn from that. And it may seem scary, but it is definitely an opportunity. So I'd love to hear what's on the cards for the next 12 months for Annabelle Subtil.
Oh, the next 12 months, well, we're looking to help Elise. She's keen to go shepherding. So we're looking to help Elise into a shepherding job towards the end of the year. And Growing Future Farmers are actually interviewing students for the next round for 2023. So we'll be taking on our second GFF student, which is exciting. I think it's going to be a pretty busy year for GFF next year because the tertiary education sector is undergoing some major changes at the moment, and we're also continuing to grow across the country rapidly. So no doubt it will be challenging, but also exciting and definitely rewarding.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And I guess a shameless plug here, if we've got listeners who are interested in either getting involved in being in the GFF program or being involved as farmer trainers, how can they get in touch?
Yep, so we do have a website, growingfuturefarmers.co.nz. All the information for students and farm trainers and application forms is all on our website. So if people wanted to go in there and have a look.
Wonderful. I'm hoping some people listening might be interested in even learning more, but getting involved because I think it's such a worthy cause. How many different hubs actually around New Zealand does GFF have at the moment?
Yeah, so we have 9 hubs now. So we've got 5 in the North Island and 4 in the South Island.
And is that looking to expand more hubs?
Yeah, so we started really in 2020 with just 2. We did a sort of a pilot scheme just in the Gisborne and the Wairarapa areas. Then last year we pushed out into King Country and Hawke's Bay, and then 2 smaller hubs in Southland and Koura in the South Island, and then expanded again into North Canterbury and South Canterbury and Taupo. So it is growing, and if people think that they could get a group of farmers together in an area, then, we'd be very happy to work with anybody that got in touch.
Wonderful. Oh, well, all of you out there, get talking to your neighbours and let's get more regional hubs set up for GFF. So to finish off today's conversation, Annabelle, I'd love for you to leave our listeners with a little bit of practical advice. So I'd love you to share with us a practical take-home action that farming businesses can take to contribute to sustainability.
Well, it's got to be to take on a Growing Future Farmers student, doesn't it? Say to invest in your own future by investing in the next generation.
100%. That is wonderful, wonderful advice. And I can't wait to see the GFF network grow as a result of that shout out. Thank you so much for joining us today, Annabelle, and thank you so much for your generosity of time and presence. And I really think that there's been some amazing key messages shared here. Our listeners will definitely gain more knowledge, and An understanding of what GFF is doing for New Zealand agriculture, and I look forward to seeing the opportunity grow.
Yeah, thanks, Becks. It's been great chatting with you, and thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Whole Story podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it and are feeling inspired and optimistic about putting sustainability into practice on farm. I have one last request for you before you go. Make sure, whatever platform you're listening to us on, that you hit follow and share the show or episodes with your friends, so that together we can grow our community and inspire sustainability in agriculture in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And thanks again to FMG for partnering with The Whole Story, so that we could bring this podcast to life for you all to enjoy. Catch you next time.